Welcome back to Kidsplaining. I'm Daniel. I'm here with Jesse.
You didn't even let me say my part.
Sorry.
I'm a duck.
Sorry. Welcome back to Kidsplaining.
Oh, no, you got to keep the intro in now.
Yeah. I'm here with the duck.
Yep. Well, no, but... and I'm Daniel. What?
I'm a duck?
This is
Who's the
not
duck in this
working.
situation?
I got to be honest. This quality of production is really downgraded when the kids left. But either way, we're going to be diving into a little discussion about RPG and DMing.
Yes, because we recently got Quest of Yore and have played a few sessions now, and this is our first foray into any sort of legitimate RPG. And it's been really intimidating, and it's been a ton of fun. But I know when you were on our podcast, you tried to talk Allison into D&D and into doing an RPG.
Is she approaching this?
Yes, she is. So we have done this with our entire family. Okay. Again, we're, I think, 3 quests in at this point.
You're DMing?
Yes, I'm DMing.
Okay.
It's a quest master in this. Because
Wow.
there's dungeons, but I think we haven't gone to dungeons yet. But I've been the quest master so far. It's totally out of my comfort zone. Never done it before. Never gone out of that kind of guided, like, here's your board game, here's the start, here's the finish. So I need advice for how to approach this as a quest master, as a DM, and for all those other people out there that might be picking this up or doing something, because this is coming back.
Yeah, you told me to throw together a list of kind of 5 tips and tricks that I would give to a new DM or a new quest master.
Yes.
And they're probably applicable to this, but they're definitely applicable to the wider RPG space. Now, I got into this hobby because I like storytelling, because I joined a little intro D&D session and sort of stumbled head over heels into a community and into a culture of shared experience, adventure, and just sort of a bunch of nerds coming together to tell a story together, which I absolutely adore. I'm really glad your families found a way into the RPG scene, even though it's through the disguise of a little square box here.
And I hope that, and as far as I can tell, this is as what's the word? It's as genuine of an RPG as D&D. And it's, you have roll sheets, you create your characters, you roll dice for the moves. It has a book with 12 different things. As the quest master, I have my parts that I can read to everybody. I have my parts that I can keep to myself.
Are there elements where you're able to create your own part of the story, or are you pretty closely following your book?
I think it gives you both options, and it gives you the option to kind of go off book in between those main parts of the story. And I've done that because we're playing with kids, so I've fudged the rules a little bit to maybe not when they have a bad roll. I mean, Jared rolled 3 1s and was very upset about that, so we worked in some ways to kind of get to redo that without just calling it a redo. He had to do something else to get back in the fight, but as best I can tell, is from my knowledge of RPGs and not having played one before, this is a full-fledged a tabletop role-playing game.
Cool. I'm not familiar with it specifically, but I am familiar with RPGs, and this video is on kind of 5 tips and tricks that Quackalope would give to an intro or brand new RPG or D&D. Or I see you looking at my note card saying that's unprofessional. Sir, this is how I operate.
That is okay.
I don't pretend to be professional. I come in with a beanie that my grandmother made.
That's beautiful.
A strip of tattoos and way too much oil on my face from driving across the country.
I wiped yogurt off of Peyton's face before the last video y'all shot, so
that's true.
We're on the same page.
So the very first tip I have is going to be know your players. I think this is going to be crucial for any RPG or D&D session that you're playing. Okay. Not only understanding the game in reference to your players, but also who's playing your game. So we'll start with that first one. Okay. Knowing the game in relation to your players. What is this going to operate best at? Where's it going to be fun? Like if you're running a 12-person D&D group, you're going to have a lot of talking over, a lot of butting heads. It's going to be almost impossible to manage, especially as a new person. Approaching it with 2 or 3 people who are already friends, who sequence and get along well, a family of players, for instance, and understanding the intricacies of what might make Peyton a little bit more frustrated, what might make the wife decide that RPGs really aren't her thing. You have to have an understanding of what your game can function under, and also an understanding of who you're playing with. This will be a collaborative storytelling adventure, and the object for you, the quest master, is to facilitate that story. But everyone has to work together to make that story come alive. It's one of the best parts of an RPG game, but it's also easy to overlook how much not understanding who's playing can throw off the balance or the atmosphere.
Okay.
So, in your experience so far, how have you adjusted your game in relation to the people who are playing your game?
I think the hardest part has been getting people to engage in it, because we're stepping out of just board games where it's here's your 3 choices. Even if you have like action drafting options, it's still set. And with this, it's just getting into that, like, okay, describe to me what you want to do and I'll figure out how to put a dice pool together. But
do the boys engage or laugh if you make silly faces or crazy voices or anything like that?
We're all trying to get into that imagination space. So I'm doing more voices, I'm doing more silly faces, but we're all getting comfortable with that. We're all finding out who each other, they're figuring out who I am.
Pushing your comfort zone as the quest master is one of the best ways to start adjusting theirs, right? And you can do that because you're reading into your family, you understand this is a new dynamic for all of you. And so as the quest master, understanding who your player group is, you can also understand where you can push the line to help them do the same so that it's not all uncomfortable. You sort of led the way first.
Okay.
Second thing I have is going to be a game 0. Did this encourage a game 0?
This has a prologue where you're going through an obstacle course to learn how to put together your dice pools.
So in a wider RPG game, and probably something that you could still do with your children, but also on a wider scale, you do with any RPG group that you bring together, especially if you're doing one with new players or new friends, a game 0 is going to be an essential part of establishing the dynamic between the DM or the GM and the players. It's where you go over what might be pressure points for people around the table.
Okay.
It's where you talk about what the narrative is. You establish the fact that this is a cooperative storytelling experience and that you don't want someone to just go murder the whole village if you're trying to work together to craft a tale. You establish the fact that the GM is working with you, not against you. I'm not your enemy. I'm facilitating the game.
Right. And the good thing with this is it does kind of in the action text, which what you're describing was taken care of through this game in the Tome of Quests in the first kind of lead up.
Did you read over that when you were?
Yes. So I did a lot of studying because I was so nervous to do this.
What part of this should have went over, and what you in any future or currently with any of the games you're running, there's some things use things like X cards or opportunities for your players, and I'm sure this is a kid-friendly, accessible one.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that there still won't be sensitive issues. If your kid's terrified of spiders, for instance, or if bullying has been a sore subject in the past, you understand that if we get too far down a route where someone's being too mean or spiders are being a little too scary, here's an opportunity for you to let us know that this is just a game and we can pull back from it and we can be safe again and then we can dive back into the adventure. Because it's always your job as the game master, as the quest master, to make sure you're facilitating a good environment and a fun environment for everyone around the table. That doesn't mean it's not hard. There's not moral challenges. There's not fear and scary moments. But it does mean that you're paying attention and you've given everyone an opportunity to voice when they're uncomfortable. That's what a game 0 does.
Yeah, I think where we've run into that more with this is in the bad rolls, things like that. That just getting the sense of failure and trying to redirect that and bring that back in the story of maybe, well, you tripped and fell down, but you can get back up. He didn't see you, so you can roll this, you can sneak around, get out of the way, recover for a round, come back in.
Because it was starting to make it not fun.
Yeah, it was disappointing because
and that's the same thing.
That roll knocked you out of the game. And that's what I like, is the freedom of saying, okay, well, it didn't knock you out of the game. Let's do this. Let's still, without just completely stopping the imagination, let's create a way to get you back in the game.
So the next one, don't railroad your players. It's a big mistake first-time DMs or GMs will make. And I know you're working off a storybook here, which has you going down a quest, right? You're going down an adventure. But even there should be room for your players to explore, solve puzzles in the way they want to, come up with something unique. Like, instead of fighting the big bad guy with a slingshot, maybe they can negotiate. Maybe they can throw a can of soup and distract it and sneak by. The open world, the RPG space, should be a playground of imagination, where you encourage the imagination and they start using it and stretching it. It doesn't mean you allow them to break your game. You create reasonable barriers and reasonable walls and help guide and twist what they're trying to do to your own objectives. But it also means that you don't ever say, no, you have to go down this pathway.
Right.
Or no,
not
this
being
is the story
married to
we're telling.
to the text of the book.
Now, you should know the text of the book well enough that you understand where your adventure is going.
Right.
And your players should understand that they're working together with you to tell a story that you've prepared. Both of those things work alongside each other, but in that space is where the wiggle room has to start existing. If Peyton speaks up and he says he wants to tame a dog instead of fighting a dog, well, maybe there's an opportunity to do that. It might be really hard. Maybe he has to wrestle it and fight it and gets injured along the way, but also maybe he has a dog for the rest of the trip.
Yeah.
There just needs to be enough wiggle room that you don't ever hold on to yours. In acting or in skit class and stuff, the idea would be yes and in a lot of ways, where someone throws out an idea and your response is, yeah, you can do that. And here's the consequence. Here's what happens. Here's the challenge. Okay. You never shutting people down or telling them that their imagination isn't something they're allowed to play with.
Right.
Because that's what an RPG is.
And that's what we've learned. It's been a fantastic just exercise of imagination just to check out, and again to have that unguided, kind of guided, but getting into those roles and checking out of Daniel and Allison and Jared and Peyton and into just our characters.
Next point, number 4. Everyone's working together. And I know you said it's emphasized in the book, and I've repeated it 3 or 4 times throughout this thing, but I think it's worth mentioning it as a single separate point. Everyone at the table here is collaboratively working to tell a story together. Your players are working with you. You're working with them. You're never their obstacle or their enemy or anything along those lines. Instead, you're just framing. You're the binding of the book, and they're adding in the words. Right? It's one of the reasons why I love DMing so much, is because it's not a head-to-head game. It's a cooperative game. It's a cooperative puzzle where you're both and all trying to understand the limits of everyone's imagination and figure out where the narrative goes from there. It does mean that you still make it hard for them, that you put challenges and obstacles that scale accordingly, that the game has to have weight and moral value and choice, but it's not you doing it. It's you guiding the players through it. Right? It's the structure that they're playing within. So understanding both you and then communicating that to the players that this is a group project, and for us to have fun, we're all on the same team. That's essential to having a healthy and good RPG kind of experience and environment.
Okay.
And then the last one, little less important with your family, but actually, after I say that, I'd argue this is as important with your family who already lives in your home as it is with anyone else who's coming over for a single game night or an RPG weekend or anything like that.
Okay.
Learn to host. As the DM, as the GM, you're the person that's bringing this party together. And so that means in your household, make this night a special night. Have cookies and milk, pop popcorn, dim the lights, get atmospheric music, right? Have the comfortable chairs or your wife's blanket that she wants to wrap herself up in when things get tense. Like, have what your family needs.
Set the scene.
So that this is not only an experience, but something that everyone's welcomed and invited and encouraging to. Take your cell phone and turn it off and set it on the corner, right? Turn off all the TVs and computers and put the other games away. Clean the space and clear the space so that you and your players can focus on being together for a moment. And I would argue, as someone who's doing this with your family, taking the time to host for your family, as opposed to just, let's sit around the kitchen table and play a game, taking the time to host would be sort of a notable and important step in your DMing. Because oftentimes, you probably say, 15 minutes, we'll start playing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do.
And it doesn't cross your mind in terms of setting an atmosphere, but you're inviting your family over for a game night. So set the foundation for them. Make this a week that the boys are looking forward to, because they know Dad's going to care, and Dad's going to invest a little bit of time into something special, into something interesting, into something cool. And DMs or GMs that are back at their own home, that are doing the same thing, that goes standard for them too. Have the drinks that your friends like prepared. Have food ready to go when they arrive, right? Set the scene with lighting and music and games. A lot of GMs you'll see have whole sets of miniatures and models and things spread out across the table. All of that is the idea of being a good host. And I'd argue that might be one you need to pay attention to more than the average person, because your family's already there.
Yeah.
So
making it different than just any other, not just another game.
Make it something special.
Yeah, that's definitely not something that has crossed my mind in facilitating this. So that's definitely one to think about.
Now, the danger for you is you might make this something special, but because your family's still in their own space, at their own home,
right,
the first 3 times you do it, they might not recognize or appreciate it as much. Don't let that take away from why it's important to host. It's a gift to your family, right? It's an investment in the time you're spending together, and it draws everyone in around the table. So do it despite their ability to recognize it at first. And as they grow up, as you continue playing games together, as this becomes a thing that you do, the value of that will be kind of a mark that's left.
Right.
So
awesome.
Those are my 5 tips and tricks for new GM or DM.
I appreciate the knowledge. It's so new, but it's so much fun. We've had such a great time with it.
I'm thrilled you all are testing stuff out, because there's a world of gaming that goes beyond our board game world. I mean, there's so much good RPG stuff out there. And if your boys fall in love with that, along with board gaming, I mean, it's like a whole different puzzle to solve.
And it's so, kids live in their imagination all the time, but for 2 mid-30s adults to get in that, like, we're going to go on an adventure and we're going to talk in voices and
the world's boiled it out of you.
Yeah, it's just so, it's something like that. It's just been so, just the opportunities it creates as a family. And, like, I look forward to getting together with friends also. But for our family, just, again, to break out of just regular old tabletop games, as much as we love them, this has been just quite a joy to go down this road. So I appreciate your advice.
Now the question is, do you know your own outro?
I do know my own outro. Do you know where to point?
Think down.
Yes, down. Okay. So thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe.
Well, now I was supposed to say be sure to subscribe.
I paused
here.
And you didn't.
Oh, well, I was waiting for you to give me a better pause. And make sure to watch our other videos over here.
Want to try one more time?
That's a Quackalope video.
Yes.
We'll see you next time.
But we need to make this a Kidsplaining video. So this has been Quackalope, this giant duck over here with his 5 tips and tricks for your RPG night. Thank you so much for watching.
You're supposed to subscribe down below.
And watch our other videos over here. We'll see you later.